I would say that it would have been great, I think, if I spent, and I found a few good mentors when I was in school. I
Hmm.
spent a lot of time consuming substances that people consume in school, but I did find a few good mentors. And I can think of one in particular who he was so disciplined. I'd never met a more disciplined human being, and he took a liking to me. And I've watched him over the course of his career. I don't know why, but for some reason, the world kind of teaches you college is your time to party and relax. As a young man, you ought to focus on forming the habits that will take you in the right direction. Luckily, I pulled away from that party life. Some people never do, and it has compounding negative effects down the road. I ended up pulling away from that and got onto a much better path. So back when I was in law school, my professor of trust and estates said at one point during the entire semester, offshore trusts are something that are out there, but I hardly ever recommend them to clients. And I
Why?
said, good question. So I went by his office hours afterwards and I said, what's your problem with offshore trust? He's like, well, I don't have a problem with offshore trust unless this, and this criteria are met. I look down upon attorneys who won't go on camera. If you don't have the guts to stand behind what you say and let somebody record it and possibly be scrutinized for saying it, then you are not as trustworthy as somebody who will go on camera and stand behind everything they say.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Blake Harris, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. Like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about this amazing book you wrote. We also want to talk about what you're doing every day to help people protect their assets offshore. So thanks again for being here, bud.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. So jumping in with the life story, I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a wonderful place to be from, lots of time spent outdoors. I don't know what struck me early on, but I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. I started out when I was old enough just to ride my bicycle around the neighborhood, handing out flyers, doing car washes. Once I could drive, I had my own vending machine route and my own disc jockey business. Then I went off to college. I studied finance at the University of Florida. Finished school after just 3 years. I was excited to kind of get out and start making some money. Plus, I had to get myself through law school. Honestly, I wasn't all that interested in being an attorney. I wanted to figure out how to make money in finance, and I didn't want to spend my life inside of a courtroom. But there was a bit of family encouragement that sent me towards law school, and I'm very thankful that I ended up going because it got me to where I am now. And I wake up every morning just excited that I get to do what I do every single day. So graduated law school and then moved out to Colorado. It was great for me because it really forced me to grind in building my business. I wasn't stepping into a family empire. I wasn't relying on connections that I had from my hometown. I really had to figure out how to make things work on my own. And when I started my law firm, I realized I'm going to do something different than the previous law firms I had worked for. And that's take exceptional care of my clients. I had worked with some very smart attorneys, some very talented attorneys, but I didn't think the customer service was ever as good as it should be. And when you start your own law firm and you're away from any family members, any friends, your entire network, and you get that first client, let me tell you something, Mike, it is your precious egg. You treat it so well. And this was so forming in how I do business. Now, over a decade later, we've serviced thousands of clients, and every single one we give the utmost care to. And I would not have developed such a method for taking such good care and showing such good service and genuine concern for our clients if I would just immediately flood with business early on. So I have built a law practice, which is now the nation's largest exclusively offshore asset protection law firm. I've traveled all around the world, been to around 50 different countries, met with trust companies, bankers, protectors. We've got team members in 4 different continents. We are constantly looking for new talent and ways to provide better deals for our clients as we negotiate better deals and find new asset protection solutions, which help give our clients the utmost peace of mind.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I am very active in continuing to teach what I have learned. I teach continuing legal education, as do the other attorneys in my firm. So other firms, law firms that may do this type of work, we've taught many of them how to do it. On top of that, I'm a social media influencer across my various channels. We have hundreds of thousands of followers. I've written several books on the subject, and I'm constantly still speaking with new clients and educating my team and other outside parties on the best strategies for asset protection.
That's awesome, man. That is so cool. What a great story. Do you mind if we go back just a bit?
Yep, I went through kind of fast, so please.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So
Yeah,
I know it's hard to imagine, but I have questions.
that's what we're here for.
So growing up in Jacksonville, what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
The weather was warm.
Yeah.
I mentioned that I spent 10 years out in Denver, Colorado, and the weather was not warm there. So I love being outdoors. I actually came from a family who my father was an entrepreneur. He had his own law firm, and I got such good exposure along the way. Totally different type of area of law. He's the one who forces people into the courtroom to pay his firm the big bucks. I'm the one who sets things up so you don't have to pay his law firm or plaintiff shark attorneys like him anything. And it was a lot of exposure that I got to adults and to watching somebody market and grow a law firm and the ups and downs that go along with that really, at the time as a child, I probably wanted to spend more time playing outside, and I got to do a lot of that, but I was dragged to a lot of these adult events as a child, kind of as an extra piece to my father and his marketing machine. But it developed such good people skills and such good ability to meet someone and make them like you very quickly. So it was a combination of getting to be in a city that was warm outside. We had lakes, we had rivers, we had the ocean. I had a neighborhood where we had lots of friends, lots of young boys to play with and kind of rough each other up, which is so important for young men to have. And on top of that, seeing my father grow and build his own law practice really very much inspired me, and it put a seed in my brain that said, this is something that can be done. And quite frankly, it can be done better the second time around, especially now that we live in the age of the internet. And for the attorneys who are willing to go on camera and be on your podcast and be on social media and put themselves out there and stand behind what they say. There was a time when attorneys were looked down upon for marketing or looked down upon for having social media. I look down upon attorneys who won't go on camera. If you don't have the guts to stand behind what you say and let somebody record it and possibly be scrutinized for saying it, then you are not as trustworthy as somebody who will go on camera and stand behind everything they say. So to answer your question, it was just an exposure to lots of different people, lots of different situations, and a lot of time to really play in the outside in nature. And I think nature is so important. We've got this younger generation that is spending way too much time inside, and that nature is so much a foundation of health. And health is key, a very important component of running and growing a successful business. I don't believe that you can be optimal up here if the rest of you is not in its optimal form as well. So it was very good for the mind, body, and spirit.
I agree 1000%. I'm so glad you said that, because there are a lot of people listening to this that needed to hear that. Really,
for sure,
needed to hear it.
Get your kids outside. Get outside with them.
Absolutely, man. Get outside, get on a bike, and go do something, right?
Go fall off the bike, get a few scrapes and scars.
Exactly. I totally agree, man. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Well, I would have to go back to the man I just mentioned a moment ago. My father was an individual who grew a very successful business. He did not tolerate his children being lazy by any means. We were not sleeping in on Saturday morning, which may have been the healthier thing to do, but in terms of making sure that we were going to be able to be self-supportive, strong individuals on our own. If there was somewhere that we needed to be at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, you could guarantee that all three of the Harris children were there, well dressed and well behaved at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. And it's something that I very much try to instill in my own, that me and my children's mother are very much instilling in our own children. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, you follow through entirely. So my father was a great, I could not have asked for a better father for me. My mother was also a wonderful person in my life. She was always there, loving and supporting. My father was there, kind of push us to be better. My mom was there to support us on the other end. And the combination of my father, who had a very sharp mind, my mother, who had a very good heart, really, I like to think that I got the best attributes of both of them. And here I am today. I turned 40 in about a week, and I
happy
couldn't
birthday.
be, and I don't think I could be in a better place in life. Well, thank you very much.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. So let me ask you this, and I do you mind if I take a second and acknowledge you for
Please.
something?
Yeah,
It
fire away.
it I really wanted to acknowledge you for the fact that you're improving on what the previous generation did, right? You're taking it to a whole nother level. And that's what we do, right? It's just it's rare for somebody that's as accomplished as you are to be doing that and focusing on that. And I wanted to acknowledge you for it. I just think it's awesome.
It's
Um, yeah, I mean it's a big deal, and you're a great example for people that are coming up that are younger than you, right? That are coming up behind you in the industry. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for it. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. It's very much the American dream to go on and have your children do
Yeah.
something greater than what you did. And my son often says to me, "Dad, I want to come work for you." And I say, "You can, but why don't you go out and build something on your own?" Because it's
Yeah.
not just about the money that you make, but it's about the person that you become along the
Mhm.
way. And it's been such a great experience. I'm so much of a different person than I was 10 years ago. And I'm very confident that I'm going to be a very different person 10 years from now.
Right.
And it's through those struggles, it's through that time in Denver, Colorado, where I didn't have connections and I was struggling to find clients. And I had to drive, I remember 2.5 hours one day to have a woman sign a sheet of paper that paid me $250. And I was so happy to do that. Now I'm at a point in my career where the smallest client we're taking on is around $30,000. But it's those little things that you struggle through at the beginning that form you into the person you become later in your life.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I'm so glad you pointed that out because the people that are listening to this podcast need to hear that, man. I mean, we're in 66 countries now worldwide. And that's so unbelievably, it's so important for people to understand that how you start and what you do and the sort of, skinning your knee and skinning your elbow and, skinning your nose, that kind of thing, right? That all comes into it and you heal, right? But you get better as you fall on your face or fall on your knee, that kind of thing. So,
Correct. And at the time, it is painful, but that pain transforms into beauty and wisdom
yeah,
and knowledge that you can use to enlighten and lift up those around you. And
yeah,
I also like what you said, Mike, about inspiring others. I love inspiring others. Now, I
I
don't
can
go
tell.
around helping everyone. I go around helping anyone I see who's already helping themselves.
Yeah.
I do Muay Thai. There's a gentleman who joined the gym about a year ago. He was not in very good shape. And I gave it some time to see if he was going to stick with it. He's been there for a year. This young man has lost 50 pounds. I pulled him
Wow.
at the side and said, "I'm very proud of you. Let's talk about your diet." He's like, "Well, I usually go to Burger King every day." I said, "No, I'm going to introduce you to a butcher. You're going to get yourself some good quality food." I go to a local acai shop, and there's a young man who I noticed he had a tattoo on his leg that said the name of his acai shop. And I said, "Do they make you get the tattoo?" He's like, "Oh, it's my own shop." And I said, "This is great." And I gave him some pointers on your menu's a mess. It needs to be redesigned. And I just appreciated the hustle that the young men have. So if you're out there and you want help, and you should want help, and there's nothing wrong with wanting help or needing
Mhm.
help or taking help, but the
Accepting
best
it.
way,
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with accepting it too. Yeah.
nothing wrong with accepting it or asking for it, but the best way to get people to help you, start by
Help
helping
yourself.
yourself. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
1000%. I totally agree with you. And that's a real lesson that people need to hear, right? They need to understand that whether we like it or not, we're on a stage.
Every day,
Obviously, we're on a stage on a
everyone.
podcast, right? But every day when you're when you're working out, when you're going to the bank, when you're driving, when you're at the acai place, right? All these, literally, you're on stage and people are watching you and watching how you react to everyday issues.
I want to give one more example.
Absolutely.
One of my employees used to work at the front desk at my condo building that I lived in, Denver. He was not making very much money. He was very quiet, and I just started talking to him. Oh, here's another life tip. Talk to everybody. Talk to people in the elevator. Sit down at the bar. Talk to the people next to you. I started talking to him, and I quickly realized this young man is absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized he wasn't making very much money. I could recruit him pretty cheaply.
Mm-hmm.
And he's since come in and become, I don't want to say indispensable, but become a very important part of my business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the job that he was doing, which may not have been paying much more than minimum wage, he was doing a great job at it.
Mm-hmm.
And when the world sees you doing a great job at it, the universe will reward you. So even if you're in a position right now where you feel like this is not getting me anywhere, do your best with it. Show up consistently with a good attitude, and somebody will recognize, the universe will reward you. Now, he didn't go from where he is now to the position he is today over time, but through consistent efforts. That discipline and that consistency is the only secret and key you need.
Yeah, totally agree. I totally agree. I hope people are listening to this because this is some really, really valuable wisdom. So when you went to high school, did you have a favorite subject?
I will tell you this about school. I did not like school. I did not like sitting still all day. I did not care about the crap they were teaching me. I wanted to learn how to make money. I wanted to learn how to chase girls. I wanted to learn how to make friends. I wanted to learn about the world. I wanted to learn about finance and business. And they were having me read Shakespeare. Did I have a favorite class? I enjoyed study hall because I could get my homework done at school and then I could go home and read about the stock market. Geez, did I have a favorite subject? I don't know that I had a favorite subject, but there was a few teachers of different classes.
That was the next question. Did you have a favorite teacher?
There were a few teachers who I think saw me and realized that Blake may not be the most interested in what is going on here, but there is something within him that is worth paying attention to. And I really appreciated that. And what subject they were teaching doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, math came pretty easily to me. The English was a little bit harder. And I will say this, where school is different than the real world. If you go to school and you make all A's and then a B in math, everyone's going to say, well, you need to study math. Well, the reality is the world awards exceptionalism. So if you actually make an A in math and everything else is a B, you ought to go learn more math and find that one skill that can really cut you ahead of everything else. And where the areas that you're not very good at, you make so much money doing this, you can hire people to do the English homework for you or something like that. So I guess math and science tend to be a little bit more wired to my brain. But I think school does give you the opportunity to be exposed to a variety of different things. I wouldn't say a large variety. Here's a quote that I love: never let your schooling get in the way of your education.
Yeah.
And if you're not enjoying school, I understand it's something that you may need to get through for the time being. I do think that education, if you use correctly, can be very beneficial or just a means to an end. But what they said in law school is the A students become the judges and make the least money. The B students become the attorneys and the litigators, and they make good money. But the C students, the ones who are out partying and getting to know all their other classmates, are the ones running law firms and making the millions and millions of dollars. And if you want to talk about law school, I'm happy to share my experience there as well.
Yeah, we're going to. So the next question is, you chose the University of Florida for your undergrad. Why the University of Florida?
Well, it was the best school that I could get into. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. University of Florida is a very good is a good school.
Yeah.
I studied finance. I was there for 3 years. It was in Gainesville, Florida, a nice warm place. And in terms of college life, it was an okay college life. I would say that it would have been great, I think, if I spent, and I found a few good mentors when I was in school. I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time consuming substances that people consume in school, but I did find a few good mentors. And I can think of one in particular who he was so disciplined. I'd never met a more disciplined human being,
Mhm.
and he took a liking to me. And I've watched him over the course of his career. He ended up going to Harvard Business School and is now running a very successful business and has a beautiful wife and beautiful family. And I was so inspired by him. So I think that what I would say in college you should very much focus on is connecting with people who inspire you, people who you at some point may go into business. I don't know why, but for some reason, the world kind of teaches you college is your time to party and relax. As a young man, you ought to focus on forming the habits that will take you in the right direction.
Mhm.
Luckily, I pulled away from that party life. Some people never do, and it has compounding negative effects down the road. I ended up pulling away from that and got onto a much better path, which has propelled me to where I am now. And maybe I needed that. Maybe I just had such ups and downs in my childhood or whatever that I needed to get that all out of my system, so that now I'm not as an adult wanting to do stupid things.
Right.
And it's much the body's much more resilient. And I think the universe and God kind of blesses you a little bit more when you're younger and has more guardian angels around you. And I can't look back at any point in my life and say I wish I didn't do that, because if I didn't do that, I may not have ended up where I am now.
Yeah.
So got a degree in finance, and I think that a bachelor's degree is, within a few exceptions of maybe engineering or something, is very much a marketing thing. But
Mhm.
finance degree sounds like you're pretty smart. Sounds like maybe I can trust this person with
Mhm.
money. Took a few finance classes, though you're going to learn a lot more on doing things in person. Once I got to my goal though was get to Wall Street. Once I got to law school's 3 years. There's 2 summers. I spent some time during both those 2 summers interning for boutique investment banks in New York City, and that was great. And something that I did was started building a network in New York. I
Mhm.
would cold call people, cold email people, even sometimes just show up at places and talk to people. And I was meeting people who sometimes would introduce me to hedge fund managers. And it was so cool, just this experience of being in that investment banking and finance world. Though I ended up becoming an attorney, that was a great forming period for me.
Gotcha.
Then and then I went to law school, and I spent some time in law school and really wasn't sure which direction I was going to go. I think I was still very interested in finance, so I took more the tax and finance accounting type classes, the business law classes. As I mentioned, spent my summer interning for investment banks up in New York, and then around the time I was graduating law school, met a wonderful woman who her and I decided, let's not do the New York City thing. Let's go out to Colorado. Went to Colorado.
Is she from
Gave
Colorado?
she she had spent quite a bit of time in Colorado before meeting me, so she had a small support network back
Gotcha.
there. Got to Colorado shortly after we got there. She gave birth to our two amazing children, boy girl twins, and we were in Colorado for I say about 10 years,
Yeah.
and that was a great thing for me because it got me away from my hometown,
Yeah.
and it got me to form myself and figure out who I was. And it was, as I said, tough. I'm going to take a moment to pause and let you redirect where the conversation goes from
No
here.
problem. No problem. You're doing great. You're doing great. So, and I wouldn't change a thing. So, where did you go to law school?
Undergraduate and law school at the University of Florida Gators.
Okay. So, question for you about Florida, basically the whole time you were there. What was your single favorite thing about attending Florida, both undergrad and law school?
Single greatest thing, a few of the people I met along the way.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, that mentor who went to
Right.
who
That
got
was
his
a big deal.
MBA,
Yeah.
who got his MBA at Harvard, and there's a few other men who are a little bit older than me that were similar to him. He's just the one that stands out the most, is really
Gotcha.
having a good head on his shoulders. But there's a few of them who were doing the right things and going in the right direction with their life.
Was there something that happened, like a flashpoint? And I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, was there a moment that made you decide that you, I mean, and you knew you were going to practice law, but was there a moment that made you decide that you were going to go into asset protection?
So back when I was in law school, my professor of trust and estates said at one point during the entire semester, offshore trusts are something that are out there, but I hardly ever recommend them to clients. And I
Why?
said, good question. So I went by his office hours afterwards and I said, what's your problem with offshore trust? He's like, well, I don't have a problem with offshore trust unless this, and this criteria are met. I said, okay, here's what I need you to do. Continue to teach everyone else, stay away from offshore trust
Right.
because I don't want any competition.
Right.
I think there's an opportunity here.
Okay.
In general, the legal profession does not like offshore trust because
Yeah.
with offshore trust, all of a sudden plaintiff attorneys have nobody to sue.
Yeah.
Defense attorneys have nobody to defend, and law schools no longer have any purpose if there's no
Correct.
longer jobs for attorneys.
Right.
I thought that was something worth exploring.
Mhm.
After law school, I realized I had to get a job. So I got a job working at a trust law firm. And I think it was the second day on the job, I went home and, excuse me, and Googled what's the most complex or most expensive type of trust. And I discovered an offshore trust. I started reading about Cook Islands Trust. I still remember sitting there at the computer in the small apartment my wife and my two children were all living in and thinking, wow, this is interesting.
Mhm.
And then from there, I found a few attorneys who knew how to do this type of work. And there's very few attorneys who are proficient at this type of work. One in particular, his name was Barry Engel. He's the one who wrote the Cook Islands International Trust Act back in the 1980s. His office was just a few blocks away from my office. And he was very much a mentor of mine. And I learned a lot from him for many years before he passed away about 5 years ago at this point. And then I went out and traveled all around the world and met with these people and took on clients. Just by doing the work, you learn more about how to do it. So where was the one point? I think it was maybe back to law school. I was probably half paying attention in class, half scrolling Facebook, and a little buzz, a little light clicked on, and I often think, I don't know if I chose this profession or the profession chose me. It was just my calling.
It might have chosen you. That's entirely possible, right? So you go to Denver or to Colorado and you start your own firm.
I worked for another law firm for a short period of time.
I got you.
Very smart attorneys, but they did not treat their clients well enough.
Yeah. And just so you know, anecdotally, I've heard that a lot. I've heard that that's really an issue in the legal profession.
Oh yeah.
And it's quite honestly why a number of people have shared with me on this podcast and outside this podcast is the reason they have decided not to pursue a legal career, simply because it was all about the money. It was all about something other than taking care of the client. And for you to be focused on taking the best care of the client you possibly can, I have to tell you, is really refreshing. And it's a great approach. And I know you'll never stop doing it. I hope you don't, because it's really, really important what you're doing. And I promise you, you're having an effect that you don't even know on the legal profession simply because you're doing it the right way. So you start, go ahead.
I've got two quick comments on that. I heard a piece of advice early on, which is when you start a business, don't focus on the money, focus on the client satisfaction, and the money will follow.
Yeah.
Also, if you are running a business and you follow through and do the things you say you're going to do, and you're competent and you take good care of your clients, it's kind of easy to compete against a lot of people who treat their clients poorly.
Exactly.
And it's the reason that I was able to start a law firm in my late 20s and compete against some law firms that have been around for decades, because I got back to clients quicker. I met the deadlines that I put on myself.
Yeah. That's exactly what you should do in any business, especially in the legal profession, right?
Any business for sure.
Right. So you start your law firm in Colorado, and you own it for a number of years. And at some point you make the decision to relocate from Colorado. Can you talk about that for a second?
So my team, we still have a couple team members back in Colorado.
Okay.
We've since expanded to having an office in addition to Miami, where my home base is, New York and Dubai. COVID came around and I was able to transfer my business to be pretty much fully remote. I mean, I'm happy to meet with clients if they come through Miami, but we can 98% of my clients I don't end up meeting in person. I just wanted to get a little bit closer to my family here. I was tired of the cold weather. I'd learned what I needed to learn in Colorado. I'd managed to get myself standing on my own feet without the support network that I'd grown up around.
Right.
I could come back here and not be reliant on that.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about offshore trusts. We're going to talk about how to protect your assets offshore. And we're also going to talk about this book that you wrote, your latest book that you wrote that you released about a year and a half ago. We'll be right back. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com. And it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. And we're back with Blake Harris, and we're talking about, you specialize in offshore trusts. Can you talk for just a second about what an offshore trust is, and then specifically what people need to watch out for? Like who listening to this podcast should get in touch with you if they're looking to protect their assets, and an offshore trust might work for them?
Okay, so an offshore trust is simply a vehicle for holding your wealth, which cannot be taken away from you.
Okay.
I like to explain it kind of like you own a boat and you don't want to lose that boat. So you go and you gift it to your next door neighbor. Now, if you want to go cruise around on your boat for the afternoon, your neighbor can toss you the keys and you can go cruise around. If you want to paint that boat, if you want to even tell your neighbor, why don't you change out that boat for a newer model or a different type of boat, your neighbor can go and do this. But if you end up getting sued, they can't take the boat from your neighbor. Now, with an offshore trust, instead of it being somebody who lives next door to you, it can be somebody who's outside the United States that the U.S. does not have any jurisdiction over. With this type of setup, you also have a legal document, which is the trust document, which requires that individual, the trustee, to act on your behalf, act in your best interest. So with this setup, you're going to be able to get the peace of mind that your assets are not going to be able to be taken away from you, but if you ever need them, they're there and available to you.
So you can go access them.
You will still be able to request distributions from the trust. And it's usually, although we do have clients who have boats inside of their trust, it's usually stocks, bonds, cash, which are put into an offshore bank account, sometimes in the Cook Islands, but more frequently in Switzerland.
Okay.
Beyond that, to your answer of the question, who should be looking for an offshore trust? The biggest misconception in the asset protection world is that an offshore trust is only for the super wealthy. Well, the reality is most people who are sued have under $2 million in assets. And if you have $2 million in assets and you get hit with a $5 million judgment, that's going to be absolutely devastating. Now, if you're worth $200 million and you get hit with a $5 million judgment, it's not going to have any real effect on your standard of living or quality of life.
Right.
So what you want to do is make sure that if your net worth is between about $1 and $10 million in assets, that you look to creating a structure which will give you protection in the event of a lawsuit.
Gotcha.
Now, you should be aware that there are other types of trusts out there, but not all trusts are created equally. With a domestic trust, you can set up the same structure, but it's not going to protect you nearly as well because a U.S. court will still have jurisdiction over that trustee. And under Article 4, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, every court has to give full faith and credit to the court orders and judgments of other states, meaning that a judgment from a different state could come in and penetrate your trust. Whereas the Cook Islands, by law, is not allowed to recognize any foreign judgments.
So can I ask you a question that's going to sound really dumb?
Please.
I don't, because this is not my area of expertise, you can tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a trust that I'm forming right now. It's a U.S. trust, family trust.
Mm-hmm.
Could an offshore trust that we initiate take that trust? So in other words, could an offshore trust be responsible for my onshore trust?
So you can move your onshore trust to an offshore trust. Now, let's talk about the different types of trust. If
Okay.
your only concern is passing your assets to your children when you pass away, I generally don't recommend an offshore trust. A
Okay.
simple revocable trust or an estate planning trust would do the job just fine. That may cost $3,000 to $5,000. You
Right.
get a will, power of attorney with that, and that's a fine strategy if your only concern is avoiding probate and passing the assets to your children.
Right.
Now, if you're concerned about protecting the assets now while you are alive, then we'd definitely be recommending that you set up an offshore trust because, in addition to passing the property after you pass away, it gives you the immediate protection right now. If you have a
Gotcha.
domestic trust and you prefer to have the higher level of protection or protection in general, then we can generally convert that domestic trust into an offshore trust.
Gotcha. Okay. That helps because I obviously no idea, right, how this stuff works. And that helps. So I know it's going to help people that are listening to this too. So you made a decision to release a book a year and a half ago. Can you talk about the book itself and what made you decide to write it and release it?
The name of the book is Don't Let a Lawsuit Take Away Everything.
Right.
And my goal is to educate the public.
Right.
Asset protection, I think, is very important to the foundation of society. Without protection, freedom really does not exist. If someone can come and take away everything you have, you're no longer free. Money is freedom. Freedom to travel, freedom to take care of your family, freedom to do the things you want to do, and freedom to not do the things you don't want to do.
Right.
So I think it's very important that education is out there. And I really didn't have a choice but to write a book with how much knowledge I have, how much content I've already put out online through social media, through articles on the website. It would be silly of me not to share that all in one concise book, which will help educate the public on strategies they can do. And it does talk about offshore trusts, of course, but there's also simple strategies people can do, such as simply including in any business contract a provision for alternative dispute resolution, ADR. Keep yourself out of court with a simple provision like that. Don't be flashy. Buy insurance. Don't rely on insurance because there's always a possibility a court could break it. I'm sorry, there's always a possibility that the claim will go beyond policy limits, and there's also the possibility that a claim may not be covered. But if you want asset protection knowledge, it's an excellent resource for anyone.
Okay. So you wrote the book, you released it, and it's more educating than anything else, right? And you also do a lot of public speaking. You mentioned to me before we started all this. Can you talk about what where you're speaking and how people can go see you speak?
I teach continuing education. I get asked to speak at different panels quite frequently. I'm not sure when the show is going to drop, but even next week in Miami, there's a CEO summit here that I've been asked to speak on. I think that's going to be a little bit more as a business owner and someone who's grown a business, and
Right.
as somebody who has done than on offshore trust. But I've spoken at multiple events internationally. I've spoken at events all throughout the United States. I'm frequently going on podcasts and shows to educate the public. And it's something that I very much enjoy. What's interesting, Mike, is that very early as a child, I had a very thick speech impediment. And other than my own sister, people couldn't understand what I was saying. But I've worked on this so much over time that my greatest weakness has very much become my greatest strength. And I get a lot of praise when I go on stage and speak and can deliver a message. And it's something that once you get good at something, you enjoy doing it. And I love doing it. And I love getting to speak with people publicly. And going back to what I said earlier, just talking to people in general, you can learn something from just about anybody you speak to.
Right.
And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you become, the more you enjoy doing it. So I love getting to get up on stage, having the microphone in front of me. I love when I'm on a panel and can just answer questions real quick. It shows that anyone could potentially just memorize a script. It could
Mhm.
be in Russian, and I speak maybe 4 words of Russian.
Right.
But if you want to actually respond to a question in person, then that really shows that you know what you're talking about. Plus, those are opportunities where I feel like I get more of a chance to throw a little bit of humor to the crowd.
Right.
And I don't tell everyone this, Mike, but I'm actually a very funny person. I love getting to share that part of me with the world.
I love that, man. That's so cool. I actually had a speech impediment as a child too.
No kidding.
and I was able to overcome it. I don't know how in the
Clearly.
world I did it, except that I was just basically forced by my parents to overcome it. And
Yep.
they spent my entire childhood throwing me in front of people so that I had to speak in public.
Good. Great.
And it just forced me to fix it. However it was that I had to fix it, I fixed it. So I'm not the best speaker in the world, but I'm certainly more articulate apparently than I was when I was a kid.
I've done a lot of
So
these podcasts. You're great to speak with.
well, I appreciate it. Thank you. So you teach continuing ed. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to do that, to teach it, and then where are you teaching it?
So what's very interesting in this industry where there's very few attorneys who are proficient in it, the knowledge has very well been a guarded industry. I've
Yeah.
been told by people, how did you get into this industry? Did you have a family member in this industry? And the answer is no. I have family members in law, but it's a completely different area of different area of the law. The question of, and I have taken an approach which probably upsets a lot of my competitors who are much older than me and have forever not wanted to share any knowledge, not wanted to educate the public. I've taken a different approach of let's get the knowledge out there. Yes, I'm going to educate some people who become competitors, and that's fine. Competition makes us stronger. And I still know that I have a much better team than anyone else out there by far.
Hmm.
With that being said, a lot of other attorneys hear me speak and decide, you know what, we would like to do this, but we want to make sure we get it done right. So we're going to call Blake and partner with him. And we're happy to co-counsel with other attorneys, or there's non-attorneys who we will help their clients set up asset protection structures as well. So I've never been one to do anything but throw my cards out there on the table. I'm very
Right.
confident with what I have to offer. And sure, some people are going to take it and run with it. And for any person who competes with me, I think there's going to be two opportunities to collaborate and bring up the industry. And the more that we get attorneys and other people out there just talking about offshore trusts, it's going to rise the tide for all of us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that's amazing that you're giving back the way you are. It
Thank you.
really is. And it's indicative of everything that you've done up until now in terms of how you've treated your clients better than just about anybody else in the legal profession, right? And you're differentiating yourself by giving back too. It's part of your heart. I'm convinced of it. You're just so passionate about this, and you want to help and you want to make a difference. And I think that's why you do a lot of the speaking that you do and a lot of the panels and that type of thing. And then also all the social media and the writing books and everything that you do to try to give back. It's a big deal, and I wanted to acknowledge you for it.
Thank you.
I think it's awesome that you have the passion that you have, and that you're doing the best that you possibly can to get the word out and share with people basically the wisdom of taking a serious look at offshore trusts. So, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
If you would like to get in touch, can I throw that in?
Absolutely, throw it in there. Let's go.
Blake Harris Law, BlakeHarrisLaw.com. On every major social media platform, we're posting several videos a day talking about asset protection and general knowledge about how to run a business. Maybe I'll slip in a tiny bit of my humor from time to time as well. I'm also out there pointing out misstatements in the asset protection industry. There's a lot of bad information out there, a lot of inaccurate, a lot of people pushing products which are flimsy or misrepresented. And I think it's very important there's a watchdog in the industry making sure that the truth is out there.
Yeah,
So
totally
if you'd like to get in contact, if you'd like to learn more about asset protection or how you can provide this to your clients, by all means reach out, BlakeHarrisLaw.com.
You got it, buddy. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a lot of fun.
Rock and roll, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, buddy. Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.